The snow had started falling 3 hours ago, but Arya barely felt the cold anymore. Her knees pressed into frozen ground, the thin ceremonial dress offering no protection against the mountain wind. She kept her eyes down, watching small flakes melt against her pale skin, because looking up meant seeing them. The wolves. The circle of death slowly closing around her. This was the ancient law, the Prova Lupi, the trial of wolves. When an Omega was rejected by her destined mate during the sacred bonding ceremony, the pack had to decide if she deserved to live. Not with words or votes, but with teeth and instinct. If the wolves attacked, she died. If they retreated, she'd be cast out, marked as rejected, left to survive alone in the wilderness. Arya had always known she was different, weaker than other Omegas, smaller, quieter. Her wolf had never fully emerged, never given her the strength even the lowest Omega should possess. When Damien, the beta she'd been matched with since childhood, stood before the entire Moonshadow pack and spoke the words of rejection, she hadn't been surprised. Humiliated, devastated, but not surprised. I, Damien of the Moonshadow pack, reject you, Arya, as my mate. You are not worthy of carrying my bloodline. You are not worthy of this pack. The words still echoed as she knelt in the snow, surrounded by 10 of the pack's most vicious enforcers in wolf form. She could hear them breathing, see their eyes glowing in dim twilight, smell their hunger for violence. Some had always hated her. Now they had permission to act on it. Her grandmother had told her stories about the trial when she was young, how in the old days it was meant to be merciful, a quick death for those too weak to survive rejection. But over centuries it had become sport, entertainment. The pack would gather to watch, placing bets on how long the rejected Omega would last. Arya had chosen silence. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of her screams. The largest wolf, a scarred gray beast named Garrett, took a step closer. His lips pulled back from his fangs, a low growl rumbling from his chest. The others moved in sync, tightening the circle. This was it. She was going to die. Arya closed her eyes and thought of her grandmother, the only person who'd ever loved her. She'd died 2 winters ago, and Arya had been alone ever since. Maybe this was better. Maybe death was kinder than living as a rejected Omega. The growling grew louder. She could feel their presence, so close their breath created small clouds in the frozen air. She braced herself for pain, for teeth sinking into flesh. But it didn't come. The growling stopped abruptly. Completely. The sudden silence was so absolute that Arya could hear her own heartbeat pounding. She opened her eyes slowly, confused. The wolves had frozen, not retreated, but stopped mid-motion as if an invisible force had turned them to stone. Their ears were pinned back, tails low, bodies trembling. Not with aggression, with submission, with fear. Arya felt it then, a presence so powerful it made the air itself feel heavy. The temperature seemed to drop another 10 degrees, and snow began falling harder, faster, as if the sky itself was reacting to something unnatural. She turned her head slowly, following the wolf's line of sight. He stood at the clearing's edge, barely visible through falling snow. Tall, impossibly tall, with silver hair that seemed to glow against the darkness. He wore no coat despite the freezing temperature, just dark clothes that looked like they belonged to royalty. But it was his eyes that made Arya's breath catch. They weren't the golden amber of a normal wolf. They were silver, pure, brilliant silver that seemed to pierce through darkness and see everything. The Alpha King. Arya had never seen him before, had only heard whispers and legends, the most powerful werewolf in the Northern Territories. A king who ruled over dozens of packs, who could kill with a thought, whose very presence made alphas bow. He never visited small packs like Moonshadow. There was no reason for him to be here. Yet here he was, watching her. The wolves in the circle began to back away, whimpering. Even Garrett, the most vicious, lowered his head and retreated, tail tucked. Within seconds, the circle had broken, the wolves scattering into the forest, leaving Arya alone, on her knees in the snow. The Alpha King moved then. He didn't walk. He glided, silent as death, graceful as a predator. He crossed the clearing until he stood directly in front of her. Up close, he was even more terrifying. His face was sharp and cold, carved from ice and cruelty. His silver eyes looked down at her with an expression she couldn't read. Arya tried to lower her gaze to show submission, but she found she couldn't look away. Something in those eyes held her captive, demanded her attention, refused to let her hide. "Stand," he said. His voice was quiet, barely more than a whisper, but it carried absolute authority. Arya's body obeyed before her mind could process the command. She stood on shaking legs, bare feet numb, dress soaked and clinging to her skin. He studied her in silence, his gaze traveling over her face, her body lingering on places that made her cheeks burn despite the cold. She felt exposed, vulnerable, like he could see every secret, every weakness. "What is your name?" he asked. "Arya," she whispered, voice cracking. "Arya of no pack." Something flickered in his eyes. Anger, maybe. Or recognition. "Who rejected you?" "Damien, Beta of the Moonshadow Pack. He had every right to." "I am weak. I am not." Silence. The command cracked through the air like a whip. Arya's mouth snapped shut, heart racing. But he didn't strike her. Instead, he stepped closer. So close she could feel the heat radiating from his body, could smell winter pine and something ancient and powerful that made her wolf, her broken, silent wolf, stir for the first time in years. "You are not weak," he said, voice dropping even lower. "You have been suppressed. There is a difference." Arya blinked, confused. I don't understand." He reached out then, slowly, giving her time to flinch away. When she didn't move, his hand came to rest against the side of her neck, fingers cool against her freezing skin. The moment he touched her, something inside Arya's chest exploded. It wasn't pain. It was recognition. A bond snapping into place with such force that she gasped, her knees nearly buckling. She could feel him, not just his physical presence, but his emotions, his power, his very soul intertwining with hers. The mate bond. But that was impossible. She'd been rejected. The bond with Damien had been severed. She should never feel this again. Unless Damien had never been her true mate at all. "No," she breathed, shaking her head. This cannot be real." The Alpha King's lips curved into something that might have been a smile, but there was no warmth in it. Only dark satisfaction. "You are mine," he said simply. "You have always been mine. And anyone who told you otherwise will answer to me." Before Arya could respond, before she could even process what he was saying, the sound of footsteps crunching through snow made them both turn. A group of wolves emerged from the forest, returning to human form. At the front was Damien, face pale with shock. Behind him was Alpha Thorn of the Moonshadow Pack, an older man with gray streaking his dark hair. They both dropped to one knee immediately, heads bowed. "Your Majesty," Alpha Thorn said, voice shaking. "We had no idea you would be gracing us with your presence. If you had known, you would have what?" the king interrupted, voice still quiet, but now carrying an edge of violence. "Hidden your barbaric traditions? Pretended you don't force rejected Omegas to kneel in the snow while your wolves decide whether to tear them apart?" "It is the old law, Your Majesty," Thorn said carefully. "The Provalupi has been practiced for centuries. We were simply following. The old law is abolished," the king said. "As of this moment, any pack that attempts the trial of wolves will be disbanded and their alpha executed. Is that clear?" Silence. Then quickly, Yes, Your Majesty. Perfectly clear. The king's attention shifted to Damien, who was still kneeling, head down. You rejected her. It wasn't a question, but Damien answered anyway. Yes, Your Majesty, I had the right to... You had no right, the king said, voice dropping to something dangerous. Because she was never yours to reject. She carries the bloodline of the Moon-Blessed. She is descended from the first wolves, the ancient ones who walked these lands before packs existed. That is why her wolf has been silent. The power is too great for her to access without proper training, without someone strong enough to guide her through the awakening. Arya's mind was reeling. Moon-Blessed? Ancient bloodline? She was nobody. The weakest Omega in the pack. How could any of this be true? Your Majesty, Alphathorn said hesitantly. If I may, the girl's family has been in this pack for generations. Her grandmother never mentioned any. Her grandmother was protecting her, the king interrupted. The Moon-Blessed have been hunted to extinction by those who fear their power. Do you think she would announce it to a pack that would see her granddaughter as a threat? He paused, silver eyes returning to Arya. But she told the girl stories, didn't she? Taught her the old language. Gave her a necklace with a moon symbol that she was instructed never to remove. Arya's hand instinctively went to her throat, where her grandmother's necklace hung beneath the soaked dress. She'd never taken it off, even though she didn't fully understand why grandmother had made her promise to keep it hidden. How do you know this? She whispered. The king's expression softened just slightly. Because I have been searching for you for 4 years. Since the moment I became king and gained access to the old records, the genealogies that track the ancient bloodlines, I knew you existed. I knew you were out here somewhere, hidden and unaware of what you truly are. And when I felt the shift in the bond tonight, when I felt your life in danger, I came. He turned back to Damien and Alphathorn, and the softness vanished, replaced by cold fury. You tried to kill my mate. You put her through a death trial, because you were too ignorant to recognize what she is. Give me one reason why I should not burn this entire pack to the ground. The clearing fell silent. Even the wind seemed to still. Alphathorn looked gray, hands shaking. Damien had gone completely white, eyes wide with terror. Mercy, Your Majesty, Thorn finally said, voice breaking. We did not know. We would never have... Ignorance is not innocence, the king said, but I will offer you a choice. Swear fealty to me directly. Disband the Moonshadow Pack and become part of the Frostborn Pack. You will be retrained, re-educated, and any member who refuses to abandon the old barbaric ways will be exiled. Or refuse and face execution. What will it be? We swear fealty, Thorn said immediately, pressing his forehead to the snow. The Moonshadow Pack is yours, Your Majesty. We are yours. The others, including Damien, quickly followed suit. Arya watched it all in stunned silence, unable to process the enormity of what was happening. Her entire world had been torn apart and rebuilt in minutes. The king seemed satisfied with their submission. He turned back to Arya, and this time, when he looked at her, there was something almost gentle in his expression. Can you walk? He asked. She nodded, even though her legs felt like they might give out. Good. Come with me. You are done with this place. He held out his hand, and Arya stared at it for a long moment. This was insane. He was the Alpha King. She was nobody. This had to be some kind of mistake, some cruel joke, but the bond in her chest was real. She could feel it thrumming with life and certainty. And when she looked into those silver eyes, she saw no deception, only conviction. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm and solid, and the bond flared brighter. He pulled her close, wrapping his coat around her shoulders. She hadn't seen him wearing it a moment ago, but it appeared as if summoned. It was heavy and warm and smelled like him. Pine and snow and something wild and ancient. "What is your name?" she asked quietly as he began to lead her away from the clearing, away from the pack that had tried to kill her. "I know you are the Alpha King, but what is your name?" He glanced down at her, and for the first time, she saw a real smile cross his face. It transformed him, made him look less like a terrifying force of nature and more like a man. A dangerously handsome man, but still a man. "Lucian," he said. "My name is Lucian, and you, Arya of the Moon Blessed, are going to be my queen." 6 months later, the journey to Lucian's territory had taken 3 days. 3 days of traveling through mountain passes and dense forests until they reached the heart of Frostborn Packlands, a fortress carved into the side of a mountain, with massive stone walls and towers reaching toward the sky. "This is your home now," Lucian had said as they passed through the main gates. "You are safe here. No one will ever hurt you again." The training had begun the next morning. "The reason your wolf has been silent is because the moon-blessed power is too intense for an untrained Omega to control," Lucian explained as they stood in a private clearing. "Your body has been suppressing it instinctively to protect you from burning out. But that suppression has made you appear weak, when in reality you are anything but." "How do we fix it?" Arya asked. "We don't fix it. We teach you to control it." He moved behind her, placing his hands on her shoulders. "Close your eyes. Feel the bond between us. Use it as an anchor." Arya obeyed. The bond was easy to find, a golden thread of connection running from her chest to his. The moment she focused on it, it flared brighter. "Now reach deeper," Lucian instructed, voice low and soothing. "Past the bond, down into the place where your wolf sleeps. She is there, Arya. She has always been there. You just need to wake her." Arya had tried this before, countless times over the years, always with the same result. Nothing. Just empty silence. But this time, with Lucian's hands on her shoulders and the bond humming between them, she felt something different. A flicker. A spark of awareness that had never been there before. "I feel something," she whispered. "Good. Don't force it. Just let her know you are ready. Let her know it is safe to emerge." Arya focused on that flicker, on the tiny spark of consciousness that felt both foreign and familiar. She reached toward it, not with force, but with welcome, with acceptance. And slowly, so slowly, it began to grow. The sensation was overwhelming. Power flooded through her body, raw and ancient and so intense that she gasped. Her skin began to glow with soft silver light. She could feel her bones shifting, muscles strengthening, senses sharpening to an impossible degree. "That's it," Lucian said, satisfaction in his voice. "Don't fight it. Let it flow through you." But the power was too much. It was like trying to contain an ocean in a teacup. Arya felt herself beginning to panic, felt the control slipping away. "Lucian," she gasped. "I can't. It's too much." His arms came around her immediately, pulling her back against his chest. "Yes, you can. You are moon-blessed, Arya. This power is your birthright. Breathe. Focus on my voice. Focus on the bond. Use me as your anchor." She grabbed onto the bond like a lifeline, pouring the excess power into it, letting it flow from her into him and back again in a stable circuit. The panic began to fade, replaced by a sense of balance. The power was still there, still immense, but now it felt manageable, controlled. "Better?" Lucian asked. Arya nodded, not trusting her voice. She could feel her wolf now, fully present and aware for the first time in her life. It was glorious. It was terrifying. It was everything she'd never known she was missing. 6 months passed like a dream. Arya trained every day, growing stronger and more confident with each passing week. Her wolf, once silent and dormant, was now a constant presence. Powerful and fierce, and utterly devoted to protecting what was theirs. The bond with Lucian deepened, evolving from a mystical connection into genuine love built on trust and respect, and countless hours spent together. The official mating ceremony was held on the winter solstice, under a full moon that seemed to shine just for them. Wolves from every pack in the northern territories came to witness the union of their king and his moon-blessed queen. Arya wore a dress of silver and white, with her grandmother's necklace gleaming at her throat. And when Lucian placed his mark on her neck, claiming her before the entire assembly, she felt nothing but joy. The old laws were gone, replaced by new ones that protected Omegas and punished those who would abuse them. The Moon Shadow Pack, now absorbed into Frostborn, had adapted quickly under Lucian's rule. Even Damien, her former betrothed, had apologized publicly, though Arya barely remembered his name anymore. He was part of a past that felt like it belonged to someone else entirely. On the night of the ceremony, as she stood on the balcony of their private chambers, looking out over snow-covered mountains, Lucian came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked, quietly. "Leaving your old life behind?" Arya turned in his arms, looking up at the man who had saved her, trained her, loved her, and believed in her when no one else would. "I regret nothing," she said firmly. "That girl who knelt in the snow, waiting to die, she is gone. I am someone new now, someone stronger, someone who knows her worth." She reached up, cupping his face, "And I have you to thank for that." Lucian smiled, that rare, genuine smile he reserved only for her. "You always had that strength, Arya. I just helped you find it." "Then thank you," she whispered, "for finding me." He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. And as the moon shone down on them, blessing their union, Arya knew that she had finally found where she belonged. Not as a rejected Omega, not as a victim, but as a queen, as moon-blessed, as someone who had survived the trial by wolves and emerged stronger than ever. She was no longer the girl who knelt in the snow. She was the woman who stood beside a king, and together they would build a kingdom where no Omega would ever have to face a circle of wolves alone again. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the story. This week I'm giving away 1 month of free access to all my Patreon content, exclusive stories, bonus chapters, and a special one linked to this episode. Just leave a comment below with your favorite quote from today's story, and I'll announce the winner in my next video. Good luck!